Welcome to Let's Grab a Cup podcast, where we talk about leadership, authenticity, resiliency. We provide a place to hold space for one another. I'm your host, Adam Sturgeon. So why don't you grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever suits you at this moment. Let's dive in. Well, good morning. I am Adam Sturgeon. This is the Let's Grab a Cup podcast. Today I get to sit down with a gentleman named Tony Lopez. He retired as a commander with the Long Beach Police Department after about 29 years of experience. He's an exceptional leader on the department, and I know he affected many lives while he was there with the agency. Tony grew up in Hawaiian Gardens, and we'll get into that. And I just really appreciate you coming on today, sir.
Thank you for having me, Adam. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and share my story with you guys.
I know you said you told me you were listening to the podcast, and we started talking, and I didn't. Sometimes you don't know who's listening, so it's really cool to, when I get a chance to talk to someone who I worked with and listens to the podcast and really says they're getting something out of it and they see there's benefit to it. And I like that you're able to come on and talk about what you had going on. So I really appreciate you coming today.
Yeah, no, and thanks for keeping us entertained with it also. I came across it. I was driving down the road one day in North Idaho, and I'm like, hey, I know that guy, and it was long overdue. It's a good, the concept you have is amazing. And again, I wish something like this would have taken place a few years back, but it's a great thing you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. Tell us about how you grew up, where you started, and kind of what got you into really a career in law enforcement.
Okay, so I grew up in the smallest city in LA County, Hawaiian Gardens, California, which is right up against Long Beach, right at the border of the LA County, Orange County line. Rough neighborhood, 1 square mile, a lot of gangs, generational gangs are from there. And probably, unfortunately, the thing that we're most significant for is one of the founders of the Mexican Mafia was born and raised in that city. And ever since then, they've sort of had I wouldn't say a stranglehold, but a control in the city. So went there, grew up there, born and raised, and never wanted to be a police officer.
Really?
My goal was to be a high school teacher and coach high school football, and that would have been my dream job. But actually, on a bet, I decided to test at the Long Beach Police Department. I didn't know anything about police work. I didn't know any police officers, and I won the bet. I was the first one to get hired, and here we are now.
So how does that work when who are you betting when you're doing this?
So I had two buddies who were explorers for the sheriff's department, and they had been explorers for a few years, and we're probably 19 years old, and I was attending a Cerritos Junior College, and we're hanging out one day. We're like, hey, let's bet who can get hired the fastest. So we put money in a tank, and first person who got hired got the money. And then I saw the movie Colors, and it kind of blew me away, and I was hooked. And I went for it, and things worked out for me.
That's crazy. That's pretty funny. Just doing your whole career is lying on a bet.
Pretty much.
That's funny. So tell me more about the Hawaiian Gardens. I know, it's a pretty small city right next to Long Beach. And we rarely venture into Hawaiian Gardens, but as far as what was it like living there?
Yeah, living there. So mom and dad, it's neither of my parents graduated from high school. They went to about 11th grade. They both came from big families, had to work to support their families. And my mom was born and raised in Hawaiian Gardens as well. So we go back there till about the 1940s.
Oh, wow.
My dad grew up in Norwalk. Yeah. And they met, got married, started a family there. And it was one of those things where, it's what they could have afforded at the time. And I thank God that they were extremely strict on us. A lot of gang members around there, like I was saying, but a lot of good people as well. My dad was he's a passive disciplinarian, I would say. So he just didn't want us to get in trouble. And just growing up there, it was what I knew. I have to be honest, I never experienced violence there, no shootings, nothing like that. But it's what I knew. It was normal, and that's kind of the life that I knew. And I'm just glad I had the parents to keep us on the straight path. We were heavily involved in sports and school. Parents were always there at meetings, parent-teacher meetings, or athletic events, and they kind of steered me away and kept me free from the gang element there. But yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do it again because, again, there's great people there as well.
That's great. And I think that's important to say, as far as being involved in sports and and just being busy all the time. Because you always see these kids out on the street, and usually that's how you get yourself in trouble. Obviously, being out and about, and really have nothing to do, and having that parent involvement is really important. So I'm sure you thank your parents all the time, but that was huge for you probably growing up.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world.
So, what sports did you play? Were you playing football? So you want to be a football coach?
I played baseball. I played football, and I was one of those. I was a man child. I had a mustache in the 6th grade, hairy legs. I was taller than everyone, and then after 8th grade, everyone passed me up, and I stood still. But I had a really good time. I played football 8-9 years, baseball about 8 or 9 years, and then after high school, I got into coaching. I coached youth sports for 15 years. So
that's crazy. So you were the kid that all the parents said, like, how old is this kid?
Exactly. Check his birth certificate.
That's
absolutely.
There's some of those kids out there. So you're like, how old is this kid playing?
They thought I was driving up to practice or driving up to the games when I was 10 years old,
That's funny. I like how you said that everybody passed you up.
Yes.
So I have a question. I know people worked. I don't know if this is how long this started, but they called you Choopy.
Choopy.
Where did that come from?
Okay, so there's a bunch of urban legends out there.
Yeah.
But
I want to hear I don't know the urban legends, so I want to hear all urban legends and the real story.
There's a whole lot of them. No, it's a simple story. We when I was in the academy, we went to the Sheriff's Academy. Long Beach Police Academy at the time was shut down, so they sent us to the Sheriff's Academy. And a buddy of mine, John Bruce, he later left to become a police officer in Redondo Beach, and he recently retired. We were roommates. We hit it off. He was from Michigan. He at parent orientation, he was rocking the mullet, and just doing his Michigan thing. And for some reason, he thought my name was Chewy, but he couldn't pronounce Chewy, so he called me Choopy. And it's something as simple as that. But it sticks because in Spanish, it's kind of a derogatory term, if you take it that way. And that's how the legend was born of Choopy.
Wait, well, how do you think your name was Chewy?
He's from Michigan. He just didn't know. I don't know. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So no, I've heard a lot of other stories about how I got named to this and that, but that was, and ever since then, I believe there was one of my best friends, Chris Rose. He ran with it, and he's like, "Yeah, Choopy fits you, so we're gonna start calling you Choopy from here on out." And what is it? 32 years later, and I'm still Choopy.
You'll still call you Choopy, yeah. That's so funny. I know they would say your name. They would say Choopy, and I'm like, "Who's Choopy?" Like I had no idea who they were talking about.
Yeah,
that's funny. So you took the test at 19. Is that you said?
No, I took the test at 20. At 20, at 19, that's when the bet was
that started.
Right. So it's funny because after that weekend, I wake up in the morning. I'm having coffee with my dad, and I'm working at the time. I'm going to school, and again, I just wanted to be a teacher. And my dad was reading the press telegram, and the back page, it says Long Beach Police Department hiring. And I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about Long Beach, even though I live right next to it, but I'll give them a shot. And again, it was the unknown. I didn't know anything about it. So I just started the process. It was pretty grueling, but I love the camaraderie of sports, and I thought police work would be something similar to that if I would have imagined back then. And so when I told my friends that I wagered against that I'm going to test with Long Beach, they're like, oh no, it's a bad police department.
Oh, really?
The sheriffs are about to take over. And this is back in the early 90s when the vote occurred, Long Beach was saved. But I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot. I kind of want to do my own thing. And I did, and one thing led to another. And December 10th of 91, I was hired and started the academy.
Oh, wow. So was that right when the riots were starting, or was it right before?
Yeah. So I graduated high school in 1989. So a year and a half after high school, I was already in the police academy. And I was lucky. I have absolutely no life experience, lived with mom and dad still, had a job, but that's about it, not a dollar to my name. I graduated May 1st of 92, and that was the second day of the Rodney King riots, and it was on the city was on fire. LA County, the state of California, was on fire. And again, so normally when you graduated from the Sheriff's Academy, they gave us 2 weeks to transition over to Long Beach, kind of learn our policies and whatnot. But they were such in dire need of police officers. We graduated at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was in the field at 12 noon.
Really? Yeah, we had heard that there were people that were just pulled out of the academy. I don't know if that's kind of maybe that transition to that story or what.
Yeah. So my academy class, we graduated that day, and we hit the field with a partner. There was also currently a Long Beach Police Academy that was going on, and they were brought out to kind of just secure the building and the parking lots and stuff like that.
Right.
So
You were done.
my
You had finished though. You're done with the academy.
yes, I had finished. I finished a whole 2 hour. I was a 2-hour veteran. So I get to briefing, and I don't know much about Long Beach because again, we're Long Beach hires, but went to the sheriff's department at the time, and I remember getting to 400 West Broadway, our headquarters, and back then we were our briefings were held citywide in one building, and we still have our Class A's on because that's all the uniforms we had at the time, and we get there, and the squadron probably had about 300 police officers. And I'm thinking this is normal. I don't know anything about police work.
Right.
And I thank God that they assigned me with an officer, one of my mentors named Steve Filippini, who he looked at me and he's like, "Hey kid, why are you wearing a Class A? We're in the middle of a riot." And I'm like, "Sir, that's all I got." And he goes, "How long have you been on? 2 or 3 months?" And I'm like, "No, sir, I graduated 2 hours ago." And he just flipped. But he took a liking to me, thank God, and just kind of showed me the ropes. So he was my first partner for about the first week. And
wow.
it was yeah, if you ever get to again, I had just turned 21 at the time, and just going to calls and seeing what was out there, just the violence around us, I had a come to God moment where I'm like, what did I get myself into? you know but I just followed his lead, and it worked out.
It's kind of intense. Like you're just going out there after, like you said, just graduating and then jumping in with a partner. He's probably thinking, who's this kid? Like doesn't know anything. And he's gonna have to like take care of you, right? Like, you know how it is, like new guys, like take care of you while also trying to do his job. So I'm sure whatever you did that stood out, whether you're handling your business or not, like it stood out to him. I mean, that's why he took a liking to you. I'm sure it was some about the way you handled yourself. It couldn't have just been like just by chance.
He was he just said, simply put, he goes, "Do what I do," and that's it. I'll do everything else. And again, I was he was he was babysitting me, for all intents and purposes. And yeah, like I said, he took a liking to me, and he mentored me for the I don't know the next 15 years until he retired. But just the imprint he left on me, and just a seasoned vet who was just an outstanding police officer, outstanding sergeant, and I'm glad he's my friend.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. So then how long was the rides for when you're out there?
They were roughly, if I remember, 3 to 5 days, and then I mean it's still staggered after that, a couple of days here and there, but it was not nearly as widespread as the most recent ones.
Yeah.
And I would say about a week long total. But I remember my mentor telling me, hey, in your career, you're never going to see riots again.
And
And I'm
then
like, all right. And then it happened.
did that feel like
So
deja vu? Like when it happened again,
it
did it
did.
feel like deja vu?
It really, really did. But I think the second time around, I was a commander at the time, and it was more widespread, and it was more directed. I think it was a lot more violent than the first go around.
It was okay.
I believe so, and a lot longer. They sustained those for months, and
Yeah.
Rodney King one was pretty much squashed after about a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Total, it was squashed.
So tell me about right after the first, like in '92, after the riots kind of died down and you were new. Like, what was that like for you? You were on patrol, obviously, and like, tell me about that time for you.
It was a lot of learning. Again, I didn't have a lot of life experience. You learn the hard way because it's trial and error. And you don't make the same mistakes twice. And I had really, really good training officers who rose through the ranks here at the Long Beach Police Department, and who they were only about a year and a half ahead of me, and they were already my training officers. But they showed us the way, and everything was a new way of life for me. It was just learning how to do things, how to talk to people. Again, I lacked life experience. I was extremely young, but it worked out. It was a lot of fun when you get to know the job. You know enough to be dangerous. That's when you have to kind of be careful.
Yeah.
So after the first year of training throughout the entire city, some of the downfall that I had, or some of the issues and challenges that I had, were I was always working downtown, and then when I got my second year on the job, I was working by myself down in Belmont Shore, and it's just a different people type of thing.
Right.
And I had to learn to know your audience, and learn to speak. And I got a couple of IA complaints just with my mouth, and looking back now, it was all me, and it was part of the learning process. And luckily I caught on pretty quick because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you listening who are not from Long Beach or know the area, like Belmont Shore is like the nicer as far as like by the beach, all the restaurants and like the more expensive housing next to the beach. And then we do like the city is kind of broken up. I mean, there's definitely right by the ocean is where you'd say like the more influential political climate is. And then as you move up is a little more of like the harder area of Long Beach. So I could see how, like, for you, Tony, like changing the way that you deal with people in different types of areas, I'm sure it affects like how the outcomes are. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so you worked Belmont, did you work that area for quite a while or just a little bit?
Only for about a year. And then I went back downtown, and I stayed in patrol for about 9 years. And at that point I said, hey, I think, I'm ready to take the next step, and I wanted to promote. So I promoted, or I tested for sergeant. I was selected, and I had just under 10 years at that time. And my first job was up in North Long Beach, and it was just a patrol watch. Loved doing that. But again, you start to realize that when you're a single officer car, or you have a partner, you're only worried about you two. But when you get to sergeant, now you're in charge of 7 or 8 people, and you just have to, you learn to trust, and that was huge on me. And if I can go back to my mentor, Steve Filippini, he had heard that I was going to promote, so he took me out to lunch, and he said, hey, this is the best advice I can give you, kid. He said, if it's 3 in the morning, you want to bathroom break, you stop at the donut shop, and when you stop there, there's 3 officers sitting there congregating, having coffee. Acknowledge them, go in, do your business, and when you come out, and if they're gone, you need to soul search. If they're still there, you're doing a good job. And I held on to that for a long time, and I share that story with a lot of people. But it's about how you treat people, and that leadership. I am not an expert by any means, but it's the genuine relationships and caring about people that just goes a long way with everybody. It works both ways. It's a respect issue, and it's never failed me. And
Absolutely.
one of my hobbies, I love to get to know people. That's just my thing, and again, it was just sound advice.
That is really great advice because I mean, we've all seen it. We've all been there where the supervisor that you or lead or whatever, sergeant, lieutenant, commander, whatever it is that comes in the room and you leave. I mean, because you don't want, maybe you feel uncomfortable or you don't want to be there. It's completely different versus the guy that comes in and you're like, and then you strike up a conversation with them and you have no issue. You enjoy that conversation and you learn, and you're always learning from the person and trying to learn more from that person. So yeah, there's definitely a difference for sure.
Yeah, it was like I said, it's always worked for me in my career.
Did you ever test it?
Excuse me?
Did you ever like specifically test it? Like, let me see. I want to go in and see if they're still here. Did you ever test it?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's kind of like a gut check. Okay, is it going to work out or not? And I'm glad it worked out for the most part. So yeah, it works.
Was there ever a
The
time that they were not there?
not that I recall, and I probably did it probably less than 3 or 4 times, so it wasn't like a large scale.
Right.
But no, they were there. Yeah.
All right.
So I like it. Yeah. So after that, I worked patrol for about a year and a half, and then I became the field training coordinator. And like I told you initially, I wanted to be a teacher. I think training and development has always been like, it's what my interest are. It's what I wanted to do. So I ran the field training program for 3 years. So in essence, what happens is when they get off when they graduate from the academy, they get off probation. I'm their main sergeant for the first year. I do the scheduling, staffing, um, any complaints I look into. We do the testing and stuff like that. And it's just not me. I have 4 sergeants helping me in all the FTO. So I really, really enjoyed that. Really got to know the next generation of police officers. That was extremely rewarding. And then shortly thereafter, I was selected to work out of the chief's office. I was his administrative sergeant. I did that for 3 years as well. Yeah.
How was
And
that?
that was
What chief was that?
I was a little bit resistant to that because I wanted to go back out in the field. My heart's always been in the field. And the chief at the time really helped me, really mentored me, showed me the way as well. And to this day, I joke about him now. I joke with him whenever I see him, which is rare. I'm like, hey, you took away my innocence because you showed me the political side, the administrative side of police work. And you need to learn it. If you want to continue to climb, you need to learn it. But I was still that naive kid a little bit, and you just see what goes through his desk, projects that go out, complaints, you sit in shooting review boards, internal affairs boards. So gave me a different aspect to law enforcement that I gravitated to.
Who was the chief at the time?
It was Chief Anthony Batts.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, he was chief when I came on.
Yeah, and just a good guy, extremely knowledgeable, and he took me everywhere with him so that I could learn, and I'm forever grateful for that.
How did you end up? I know you moved on to working the counterterrorism unit. How did you transition? Was it right after that stint in the chief's office?
Yeah, yeah. So I did 3 years in his office, and then I put in for the it was called counterterrorism intel/intel, and I didn't know anything about that side of the world, and I just wanted to give it a shot, and I ended up being there for 12 years and absolutely loved it. It's police work, but it's a different type of police work. A lot of things are informal. There's a lot of networking, a lot of travel involved in that. I was fortunate enough to get selected to an FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, so I was there for about 8 years. And this is at offsite location, and it consisted of about 25 people when we were fully staffed, and from different agencies, some from the federal level, some from the state level, and we worked together on terrorism related matters, any threats, we deemed incredible or non-credible here in LA County, San Diego County. We had a big range, but it was a lot of fun. It was a different side, and it's the first time I was actually apart from the police department, so to speak. I'd go in there once or twice a week to do paperwork and catch up on things, but uh, besides that, I was at an offsite location, and we kind of did our thing there, and kind of had free reign. But it's a great job, great job. I recommend if anyone could ever do that, it'll open your eyes to a different side of the world. And yeah, I was fortunate to do that for so long.
What kind of schedule do you have when you're doing that like counterterrorism stuff? When you're out there, are you working more than like your scheduled hour? Are you stuck doing, because you're doing so much intel? Are you stuck doing stuff like after hours a lot, or are you called in? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, you have to be really flexible because sometimes the people you want to interview that work during the day, so you have to go to their house in the evening, and you want to go with the partner all the time. And again, our jurisdiction was, let me correct myself, from St. Louis Obispo down to San Diego,
All right.
and it was a wide area. And they generally gave us stuff that, like me personally, they gave me stuff that revolved around Long Beach or neighboring cities. Um, but yeah, so some weeks you worked more, some weeks you just worked 40 hours. But again, it was all dependent on, okay, hey, if I have to interview John Doe, they don't get home till 7 at night, then I have to adjust my schedule and go at 7 at night.
Right.
And, we had our take home vehicles and stuff like that. But it was, as long as you were flexible, they were okay with what you did.
That's cool. Yeah, I know. Like, I know that a lot of people like to want to get into that specific detail, and I don't know if they like staying in the city, like staying with the department, or like you said, going out to JRIC and being part of the
Right.
task force.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you're within the police department, we're in this, it's the same detail, and you're doing matters, they go hand in hand, but you also do like for I say force protection, but it's a VIP protection. You do a lot of the threats within the city, a lot of bomb threats. We want to make sure there's no nexus to terrorism, and we could let everyone know, hey, it's not related to this, it's related to something else. So a lot of work, a lot of in-depth work, a lot of behind the scenes and work that goes on there, and a lot of surveillances and stuff like that. But it's fun, it's challenging because it's a small unit. And again, I think why I liked it so much was that team concept. There was only about 10 of us, and we have to get along. We have to, work together. We're going to be put in some spots where we need to trust each other. So it was, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Were there any incidents that, or like, I guess, deals that happened that you, I guess, prevented? If you wouldn't have been there, that it would have caused devastation, or they had a goal and then you guys brought that to, forefront before it happened?
A lot of times you don't know that for the simple fact that you're going to do something to discourage that from happening. You'll take a step before it happens. For instance, there was an LAX shooting. I don't even know what year. It might be 10 years ago. It was an active shooter in there, and so my team would roll out. My team that was apart from the police department of the task force, we'd roll out. We do all the background checks on people, and then we do all the legwork and then give it to the FBI investigators to do stuff like that. There was one, I want to say more recent, and I believe I was out of the detail then, where there was I don't know the ins and outs, but from what I do remember, a guy from the Valley was coming down to Long Beach and had planned to place bombs all over Ocean Boulevard. one of the parks there, Bixby Park,
That's right.
and
I do remember that
stopped
story.
because
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a lot of it's just that type of work, and it's just tracking down people who who we think are bad, people who were 10, 15 years ago when the FBI had their, I believe they still have it, the FBI watch list. If they were like in our areas, we'd go and we'd look at them, make sure they were okay, make sure they weren't causing any problems without them knowing. So it was a lot of secretive work, but it was rewarding. But like I said, sometimes we stopped stuff before they possibly could happen. Didn't mean it was going to happen, but we were just there, we had the intel to try to thwart it.
Yeah. Was there any time when you were on this task force, because you had probably, like, I'm guessing, little supervision, being away from the department and stuff like that, and being on your own, where you felt like there was, like, I don't know, where a conflict of interest ever came up, where you're like, hey, no, like, this is not like, or it was hard, something that was harder to deal with during that time?
No, I had thought about that one before I went over there, and there wasn't too much of that. There really wasn't. The department does a really good job of shielding you from anything that might be of conflict of interest, but because they still have the other detectives that are in the office within the department to handle certain things. So um, no, it actually worked smoother than I thought it would be.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
I know sometimes agencies working together can cause some kind of conflict. So I don't, as far as like not having the same policies and procedures, sometimes there's issues there. So I didn't know if that ever came up.
No, it didn't. We because on the detail when I was there, the local agencies were Santa Monica Police, um, LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, a few others I don't remember, and then you had a lot of federal ones. So we meshed. We made sure that things were going to be done legitimately, because if we have to take someone to court, things need to be done the right way.
Yeah, but no. So then when you moved on, I said 12 years. That's a long time in that detail.
Yeah, I fell in love with it. I did that, and I had probably about 7 years into it. I wanted to test for lieutenant, so I took the test. My heart wasn't in it. I studied, but I failed the written, and it was kind of like a ego check. No one likes to fail, but it wasn't the end of the world. And I regrouped, and I waited about another 5 or 6 years. And right when I thought my family was in a good place, our youngest was at a school. I wanted to promote, and I was toward the back end of my career now. I had probably 25, 26 years on. So I took the lieutenant's exam. I was fortunate enough to pass this time. I got promoted, and my first assignment, I was the last person taken in the first group, so I didn't have any seniority. So I go from having a boatload of seniority as a sergeant to absolutely zero as a lieutenant.
Right.
So I end up on graveyard, and I hadn't worked the field in 17 years. And when I went back, faces were new. I didn't know people. Quite frankly, I was lost. We had a training program for about a month, and then you kind of go on your own. And I was excited, though. Again, my heart was always back on the streets. So I promoted in 18, and had a really good time, smooth transition. I didn't know anybody, so what I did was on graveyard you have more flexibility because it's not as busy, and I got all my sergeants citywide, and we would go and have coffee for 30 minutes right out of the barn, and I just to get to know them and introduce myself. It worked out really good. I wanted to see what their strengths and weaknesses are, what my expectations of them were, and it worked out really, really good. Got a good group of leaders out there, good group of leaders. So shortly thereafter, one of my first shifts by myself. It's 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and there's a structure fire. And as I'm headed back to the station, I'm like, I better head that way because it's a big complex with the elderly people living there. And as I drove up, shots were being fired, and it was the Captain Rosa incident. He was a God bless his heart. So the the whole city went haywire.
Do you want to explain, because not a lot of people know
Sure,
it.
sure. So as I pull up, shots are being fired, and the fire department's already there. A couple engines there. They have a command post because they're there on a structure fire. We're just there initially to direct traffic, and that's when the shots start ringing out, and our officers immediately take action. 2 firefighters were wounded by gunfire. Captain Rosa ultimately lost his life, and it was probably the biggest ordeal that I had ever been at where I was in charge. because there was no other higher ranking officers, no other lieutenants to help me. And those sergeants that we met with, I depended on them. I called them over and we gave them our assignments. And again, you and I were talking some time ago about autonomy, and I trusted them and I allowed them to make their decisions. I told them what our ultimate goal was. And these officers and sergeants were absolutely heroic that night. And it kind of changed my outlook on things. I'm an older guy. I'm, at the back end of my career, and you see the hurt that the city is suffering, the fire department, obviously, the police officers. And I had a moment where I said, I want to do more. I can do more, and I was I was the older one. And I think I go, with hopefully I have a skill set that goes and I can help people. And I wanted more of a influence on the police department, if that makes sense, because I saw how hard they worked, how heroic they were, and man, who doesn't want to lead them? And that was a career changing, life changing event to me. It truly, truly was, as it was for the officers and the fire department as well.
Yeah, I can imagine how chaotic it would have been out there and trying to figure out what's going on, because I know there was a lot of confusion of what was happening, and I wasn't there. I know it happened overnight, but just the confusion that would happen when you're out there trying to control the scene. So
yeah, it's one of those where right away that you're in over your head. So
right,
let's use that team mentality to sit there. Let's give away assignment. And I'm telling you, the sergeants were the Long Beach Police Department. They have some great leaders. All they have to do is utilize them, because these people were phenomenal that day, and the officers were even more heroic. And we're talking about a scene where I believe we had 48 officers on duty that night. 45 were on the call. About 40 were in the building. There's 5 or 6 different crime scenes. It was that one nightmare scenario they give you when you promote. It was this one on steroids.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we did it, and I remember coming home at about 3:00 that afternoon and just having my moment to sit there and decompress. And I turned the news on, or TV on. That's all over the news, So I remember my wife telling me, you have to get to bed. You're going to work tonight. You got to get to bed. I go to bed about 4. I wake up about 4:20 because, when your brain's on overdrive and I have to prepare, staffing for that night and this and that. And the whole police department as a whole just stepped up. Nobody called in sick that next night. It was just phenomenal. And it's one of those where, man, this generation of police officers is to be commended, like never before, because it's amazing people, amazing empathy. They're awesome. The Long Beach Police Department, with the leaders they have there, they're in a good place.
What's funny is, like, we always talk about, like, the new guys, like, oh, they have it so easy, or they're this or that. When we're training, I'm sure when you were training, they're like, oh, look at these guys, they don't know what they're doing. It's always like the next people they didn't have it as hard, or they're not going to know as much, or whatever it is. But like you said, as soon as something happens and these people are put in this position to step up, you see it all over the place. Like, they step up, step into that role, they take action. And like you said, I think it's utilizing and trusting that your people are going to do their job and do it well,
Yeah. I remember I took advantage of the moment when they had me debrief it at management training day. And I probably spoke for about 2 hours, and I kept throwing out compliments to the police officers and the sergeants who were there. And you could see the command staff, their eyes were kind of open, and they were like, what was the biggest issue you had? I go, the biggest issue I had was realizing that this is a huge deal. All of us are going to need to pull together. And once you give the sergeants the assignments, I allowed them to make their own decisions and check in with me every so often. And it worked. I go, you have to trust our people. You have to trust them. Incident command system, it works. It works. I believe, and this is not a knock on anybody, because it's not the vast majority, but some people are afraid to trust their supervisors, and you have to. That's why they're promoted. That's why you develop them. If you don't trust them, you better develop them. Right. And I was always under the belief that you trust them until they give you a reason not to, and when they do, then if it's a training issue, you train them. And it's okay to make mistakes. If you're making decisions, you're moving forward, you're in a good place.
So were you running that whole scene by yourself the whole time? Did you ever get assistance from someone that was like higher up or ranking, or
I ran it for about the first 2 hours, and it was weird because we were in transition, because it happened, I believe, a little after 4 in. Our next watch came on at 7. So once the scene it took about an hour to kind of figure out everything. SWAT was responding. and then the day shift started to come out. So about 3 hours into it, I started to get relieved. And then we had the duty chief who helped tremendously with notifications so that I could focus on the incident at hand.
Yeah. How was it working with the fire department? Like having that, was there like good communication? Was it difficult? Was there issues?
Initially there wasn't, and it was chaotic, and it's no one's fault. When they get there, they set a command post, and we have different goals. They're there to put the fires out to assist people who need medical aid. We're there to put people in jail and enforce laws. So their command post was directly in front of that location. They had no idea what was going to,
Right.
come up the incident. And excuse me, the police department, we usually generally go a block down, a block over. So I wanted them not in front anymore, but they had 3 big engines. They're like, we can't leave because all of our engines are set up, and there's still some gasoline smell, and there's still smoke. And so I got a couple of police officers to go and be their force security team. And then when they gave me a battalion chief to come to my command post, and that's when it started to click. We started to share information, and it went really, really well. What was hard was that the battalion chief, his best friend was Captain Rosa.
Oh, wow.
And so we talk about the ultimate professional. This fire battalion chief was the ultimate professional, and held it together. But you could see the pain, and it was difficult. It was difficult, and that's why I say the whole city heard over it. And it was trying on a lot of different levels.
And then you said that was a big that incident itself was like kind of a big turning point for you as far as like what you wanted to do with your.
Yes, yeah. So about a week and a half prior to that, we had another management training day, and we didn't know what to expect. So we get there, and it's all of the command staff in the police department. And again, I'm the lieutenant with no seniority, right? So after lunch, they have a scenario, and they're like, "Well, who's going to run it?" And everyone looks at me because I'm the new guy. So I'm like, "All right, I'll run it." And I kind of got a little nervous because the chief was there, the assistant chief, the deputy, everyone was there, and I got to be upfront. I sucked. If there was a grade lower than F, then I would have got that.
Really?
And it and I know the incident command system. I choked. That's the bottom line. I choked. What upset me was some people wanted to help me, other people didn't want to help me, and that kind of rubbed you the wrong way. But it is what it is. And I remember after that day, I went home and I studied the incident command system relentlessly until I mastered it in my own head for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then that's when the incident with Captain Rosa happened. And
Wow.
I'm a spiritual person, but I think I was put in that place for a reason. I had to fail in order to succeed, and I'm just glad I had good leaders around me and to help me, make it happen. So that was a moment. And I remember about a month later, I told my wife, I go, I want to do more. Again, our kids are in college now; they're all adults, and they're out of the house. And I love the city. I love this police department. I love these people that I've met recently, and I think I could do more. And she goes, if you're going to do it, commit to it and promote, And so I tested for a commander within about a year and a half, and I was fortunate enough to get selected for that too. And you hear a lot of stories, and I tell you, like my heart was always with the police, always in the streets. I thought I was a pretty good police officer, but I really enjoyed being a commander more because you could help people more so than just handling a call. Because coming back to your show, it's a wellness thing, that I think we ignored for a long time. And as a commander, not just me, everyone during that time, there was a lot of trials, a lot of challenges to society. I'm with everyone else. Law enforcement is a ever evolving professional occupation, and we always have to learn how to get better. And as a commander, I was able to have more overreach with my division, and all of us needed some help during that time. The last year was
Yeah. What year did you promote?
awful. I promoted in 19.
So like right before COVID happened.
Yes, yeah, and I got assigned to my own patrol division, so I was pretty excited about that. And again, the first month was a piece of cake. It was quiet. I'm like, hey, I can do this. I think I could do a pretty good job here. And a lot of it was just building camaraderie with my division. I would always have this open door policy where, again, I want to get to meet people. I used to call people in just to interview them, just so I know who they are. And are you married? Do you have kids? And it wasn't really about business. My best times as a commander was my door being open and 4 or 5 officers being in there and us just BSing and just laughing, because they
Uh,
need that. I
yeah,
need
and
that.
I appreciate you doing that because I think there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, I have an open door policy. Oh, I have open door policy." And then when you go in there, they're like, "Oh, you need to go through your supervisor. Like you don't, like it's like you need to go through your chain of command."
Right,
Versus actually having, when you say
right.
open door policy, you should be able to have those conversations where it's just about life and checking in with people and seeing how they're doing, because then they're more willing to come to you when there's an issue. They're not going to come to you if they don't trust you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And, I told my sergeants, too, when you see officers in my office, we're not talking about personnel issues because I'm not going to cut your legs off. This is just men and women sitting here talking. And my secretary would always give me a hard time. She goes, it's like a party in here all the time. But, that's what I was looking for. I like that informality. We're formal enough here on the station. We can be ourselves.
Right.
I really like that. My first obstacle, or I wouldn't say obstacle, but challenge as a commander came with there was an active shooter in our part of the city, and 2 of my officers responded to it, and one of them exchanged gunfire with the guy. The guy had a shotgun. He had already shot 2 people, and his partner, who was responding to assist, started taking rounds and had no choice but to run the suspect over. Um, Killed the suspect, and we had to review the body cams, and this is probably a little before midnight. And these officers, again, did a heroic job. Uh, they maintained the scene. They did everything. One of the officers was transported to the hospital, and when I finally got to him, his first thing to me was, with watery eyes, "Are the victims going to live?" The ordeal that he just went to, and you see the empathy. And this is what I always wanted to push out to the public. Look who you have protecting you. You have some solid, solid people,
Right.
and and they both had a hard time, but they're both some of the best police officers we had. And we just, you keep an eye on them, you take care of them, and you don't want to, as a commander, you don't want to be overburdening, you don't want to pressure them, you just let it be. But say, hey, I'm here for you. And again, these were high producing police officers who did a heroic job. This is a long ordeal. And then within the same week, I believe, uh, I get a call at about midnight from the duty chief and said, hey, we believe one of your officers committed suicide. They're looking for his body. It's outside the city. And again, it's that big old gulp you get in your throat. You wake up, and they call me. They found him. So we have to start making notifications. And the chief at the time, Chief Luna, and Assistant Chief Hebish at the time, we all met, and you start making the announcements to everybody, and you see the face, and yeah, I hurt too. The guy was a great guy. No one saw it coming. And it shocks you to your core,
Yeah.
because again, I love these people. I genuinely, they're not a name. They're my friends. And you see the hurt that the whole watch had. And, you start worrying, like I was telling you, when you get promoted to sergeant, you oversee 7 or 8 people now you oversee about 100 people, so it's, and those 100 people have lives. They have stories too. And you got to do whatever you can do to be genuine and let them know, I'm here for you. I want to help you. If you need help, please come to me. We'll find you resources. And the department, I think now, I believe that they're going in that direction, as they should be. But it's at the end of the day, though, you walk out, you're proud of your people, and you just care for them. And it's I think if I had any issue of being a supervisor, is, I don't want to say I overcared, because you don't overcare, but you hold a lot of that in because you want to be strong for them. It's hard.
Yeah.
I thank God, though, that I get to go home and I have a beautiful wife who's real supportive, real honest, and we get to vent on each other. So it's I was in a good place at the time. So
I think there's always that interesting, because that has happened now a few times in our career where people commit suicide, and you always wonder, like, if they would have reached out to you or reached out to me, like I would have spent as long as they needed, like talking to them, right? Like anything they needed.
absolutely.
And there's always a question like, okay, what's in between? And that's kind of like why we're doing this. Like, what's in between? I need help and I'm fine. Everything is good, right? And then there's like this gray area where people are like, well, if I go and like talk to somebody, that means that I need help. But that's really not. There's also this idea of like, we don't do enough to maintain ourselves and maintain each other as far as like taking care of ourselves. Like I'm a big proponent of like mentally, as far as like continually maintain that, just like your body, like mentally you should be taking care of that as well. Whether it's having a confidant, someone to talk to, having someone to like work things out with. But I don't know if there's anything that we can do. I'm still trying to figure this out for even for the departments. Like what can they do besides saying, hey, there's a therapist you can go talk to? I mean, there's peer support, but it's very similar. Like people go, well, I don't want to just talk to some random person I don't know that works peer support. You know, how can we emphasize that trusting each other to like really open up and have those conversations?
Yeah, that's I don't have the perfect answer for you. I don't have an answer for you, but I agree with you. It's police officers just in general, they're tough to crack,
Yeah.
and I think it's gotten better when people will speak openly to each other, like in a small setting. I think that helps because when I came on, that never happened. I hope that somebody can find that conduit to do that because again, life's tough, and what we see out there and in our personal lives and whatnot, we need some type of support. We really do. I think strides are being making now to address that. But man, if I had the answer to that, I'd spit it out right now because we need it.
It's good that you were in a place where you had the ability to go home and decompress and talk to your wife and like really probably let it out, whatever you need to do to deal with the issues that you're having at work, because that's so much to happen, especially in like just a short amount of time, and to manage and deal with and worry about, because you're still dealing with the incident with the officers who they themselves, like, let's be honest, this is LA County. People, when you get into a deadly force situation, they're worried about their livelihood. They're worried about their jobs. So they're dealing with that. It's a stressful situation. And then having to deal with the suicide as far as like that family is going through that trauma. And then all the guys at work, losing a friend, losing someone they worked with.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's I wish I had the perfect answer for that, but it's just it's tough to do. It really is, and that's again like I I cannot compliment or talk more about the officers who worked for me. They're good. They're just plain and simple. They're good, And I just wish again the public would open their eyes, and a large part of the public does, that they see that the goodness of it. But they're real people, real men and women. They have real lives, real families. They have hard days and they have good days, and but when they put that uniform on, they bust their ass to do the right thing, in large.
Absolutely.
And again, this is a ever-changing job. We always have to look at ways to get better, to make things easier, to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, they need a mechanism to release, to talk to somebody, to go and vent, to go and work out, just something, and I just, again, we're making strides. This show is, I think, is a tremendous help, and hopefully we just keep on improving.
Absolutely. So then this is what time? This is about February.
It's about February, and then in March, COVID hits, and they tell me that, hey, we're going to open up the Department Operations Center, which is, the Department Operations Center within the department. It's just when you use a lot of resources and you need to have some contingency plans coming up. So they said, hey, we're going to put you in charge of it. So I said, okay. So I opened up one out of our station, and they let me select 10 people to come and work. And a lot of these people, a few of them I didn't know, other ones I did know. And we were responsible for tracking, COVID, if it hits the department, how many people have COVID at the time, different staffing schedules in case we have to go on a tactical alert because we're short on bodies because of COVID. What an educational piece to it. We have to work with the health department. It was pretty much 24-hour job for 2-3 months. And
I remember having several after-hour conversations with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we in essence had to do a deployment over a weekend. A deployment generally takes about 2 months. We had to do it over 2 days. And the workers I had, again, I gave them our goals, I gave them our assignments, and I let them do it. And the best thing I did was stay out of their way because, again, they're good at what they do. They did a great job, and we were locked on. So everyone was getting tired. The patrol officers getting tired. We're burning the candle at both ends. And then lo and behold, things go sideways in Minnesota, and we're looking at riots now. So the command staff said, hey, since the DOC is already up for the DOC is the Department of Operations Center, since it's already up for COVID, let's transition that into the riots. What are we going to do? So again, we were working 24 hours a lot of times, or the DOC was up for 24 hours, and we were putting a lot of hours in, and just getting the department ready for as far as equipment, where we're going to get equipment from, mutual aid. It's a lot of work. It's not just, hey, make a phone call and everything happens. It's a
Right.
lot of work. And we did that, and we maintained that posture for about another 3 or 4 months after that because of all the riots and protests. And that was the time where it was challenging because I'm still the commander of a division. I have help running it now, but you're looking at this, and now you're in charge of, not, I wouldn't say in charge, but now you're trying to manage the entire department. And it's we had our challenges, upset a lot of police officers because sometimes you have to shift their schedule around. What's the saying? What are the two things cops hate, right? Change and the way things are. And so we try to massage it as best we could, but you're not going to make everyone happy. But I would always preach, hey, let's do it for the greater good. Okay, look at the ultimate goal, that we need each other right now. And quite frankly, a lot of police officers would come in and they'd be pissed off and upset and disgruntled because of what they're seeing on the news and what the backlash that we're getting. Um, and that sucks. I'm telling you right now, it sucks. You know how good your people are. You know how hard they work. You know how much they care about people, and you have what seemed like all of society come down on the law enforcement profession.
Right.
And I think it was uncalled for. Um, I don't condone what happened in Minnesota, but again, we're in Long Beach, and throughout the country, 99% of police officers are outstanding. And it was just everywhere we went, we were exposed to negativity in some way. This is after we're working 12 hours and whatnot, and you get people getting up in their faces, spitting on police officers, and it was just a hard time. And yeah, so even for a moment there, I took a step back and I started to lose a little faith in humanity. Just, where are our protectors? And they were nowhere to be found, and it took a toll on me. But again, when you go to work, you have to put a happy face on. You're professional and you do your job.
Right.
But I seen the pain in the police officers' faces, the loneliness, and I couldn't do anything for them, and that really, really, it burned me. It burned me.
So what did you do to manage that? What was if you're sitting putting a happy face on at work, what were you doing for yourself?
That's a good question. I would try to stay as busy as I can. I'd sleep as much as I possibly can because I was probably sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night then. And even when you're sleeping, you're getting calls, right? People want updates on things. And again, my backbone is my wife. She's my bodyguard, she's my protector, she's my therapist, and she's a nurse. And she was a nurse for 21 years, a NICU nurse. But she experienced a lot of bad things. She had lost some patients. She was a manager at Long Beach Memorial Hospital when they had an active shooter. She knew all the parties involved. They brushed up against her the day of the shooting.
The shooter did, or
the shooter did. Yeah, and she's a strong person, and she was my conduit to just, I need to talk, and she would sit there for hours on and just let me talk if I wanted to. And so she helped me through it. And then my good friends, good family, my kids are awesome. They would always come check up on me, make sure I'm okay and stuff like that. It's kind of weird because, you care about your kids all your life, but now they're coming back. I mean, you did a good job, I think, but yeah, so they would come and they would check up on me. They'd make sure the wife was okay, that we were safe and stuff like that. So all that strong family support really, really helped.
So you're saying it was taking a toll, like with all the officers coming in. I know it was stressful because officers, like you said, like they understand they have a duty to do, like to take care of the city, and it takes obviously adjusting schedules or changing schedules. But when it comes down to like, oh, their family wants them home, right, and they don't want their family gone for every single 12, 5-7 days in a row, whatever it is, 12-hour days, and then adjusting it the next week, and then adjusting it again, and switching this and doing this and all these back and forth, and I could see them getting burnt out as well. So like dealing with that, do you feel like even in your position that the management, and I'm not like to say anything bad about the management, but like did you feel like, or they had the tools to help you, in what you were dealing with? Because you had all these people that are kind of relying on you, but did you have people that you could rely on in the department that you knew that they had the tools to help you, or was it kind of like everyone's just trying to figure it out?
Everyone's kind of trying to figure it out. I had one or two good friends who were higher than me, rank wise. And, I'll say his name, the current chief now, Chief Ebish, he called me and said, "Hey, Tony, you good?" And that meant a lot. He'd call me, check, and I truly believe he was being genuine. And he's like, "Hey, whatever you need, you let me know. If you need time off, you let me know." Um, so he was always there checking on me. So I have to say that, yeah, I think if I would have reached out to him or told him, "Hey, I could use some help," he probably would have afforded that to me.
Did you? I guess it's kind of interesting because do you feel like as a police officer that you would have done that? I mean, I'm guessing you did. Like, did you ever reach out to him and say you needed help?
I did not.
Do you ever feel like I'm just curious, like in this situation. So because you're like, hey, I'm in charge, like I gotta handle it. Like going back to the same mindset of like, I gotta know, all the ICS stuff to do it well. And now you're in this scenario where you're in charge to be like, hey, I need time off. I don't know if it's hard for me to see people doing that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Looking back, I mean, I wouldn't have. I would have done the same exact thing. I would have just internalized it, handled it, and moved on.
Right.
It just, the police department is, regardless of what police department you're from, we're all team players, and you all have a job to do. And I just want to do my job to the best of my ability. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's going to bite you in the ass, though. So we go later on toward the year, and my wife, the nurse, says, "Hey, we need to have a talk." So I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do?" So we sit down, we're talking, and she's like, "Hey," she goes, "I'm telling you this because I love you." She goes, "You missed your physical. We have to schedule that." She goes, "You look tired. You look 5 years older. You've gained weight. I'm worried about you. You won't let me take your blood pressure." And she said, "So I made an appointment with you next week, and this is what she goes, I'm going to go to make sure you go."
Wow.
And we went, and I had been on blood pressure medication, but a very, very minimal amount. And my doctor went and said, "Hey, this is the worst physical you've had in about 10 years. And she goes, your blood pressure is through the roof. Your cholesterol's up. You need to start making some changes to your life." And she goes, "You can keep on at this level and it's not going to progress. It's not going to progress nicely for you."
Right.
And that was kind of the blow to the stomach. So we get in the car and we have a long talk, and it was probably early November of 20. And I had literally, and not just, when I say it's not just me, it's a lot of all the command staff and the officers, everyone was working double time, triple time. We were doing what we had to do. And my goal was to leave in December of 21 to give me a full 30 years. But I was tired. I couldn't sleep. I was getting migraines, and we had that hard discussion. Being a police officer, it's the only full-time job I've ever had in my life. I loved it. It was just, I love being a police officer, and I love being a police officer for the department I work for. But we made the hard decision, that it's for my safety, for my health, and for just my family. It's best if we retire. And I slept on it for about a week, and then I finally told my bosses, "Hey, for health, I have to leave." It's just, I knew I was in a bad place.
Yeah.
I was telling you last week too, during this time when I felt my body biologically just breaking down, and I was getting something called trigger finger, where your fingers lock in place, that I was hiding from people. So probably 4 times during that year, I had to go and get a series of shots to release my fingers.
Really?
It's stress. It's stress. The doctor said it's 100% stress related. So after I made the decision, and the hard part wasn't making the decision, the hard part was I didn't want the officers to think I'm leaving them. I wanted to be here for them, but it's just, I couldn't carry forward anymore.
Right.
I needed a really, really, really long break. And so we made the decision, and it was hard to tell people, but it was, looking back now, it's been a year, and I don't regret it. I'm in a better place now. Health-wise, I'm a lot better. The stress is gone, but I miss the officers in my office BSing with me,
Yeah.
joking. I miss that. I don't miss the meeting. Correct. I don't miss the politics. I don't miss the phone calls at night. So it's I do it all over again, but it was just, my message to people who are, toward the end of the career: take care of yourself. And, well, I mean that for everybody, but even toward the end, don't let a job get the better of you, because I always told myself that'll never happen to me. I'm too tough. And guess what? Life catches up, and life's going to win.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment to commend your wife here, because the fact that obviously she loves you so much, and she's showing that by she can recognize when things are changing and things aren't right. And then she, and does whatever she can to take care of you, which is like going to the doctor with you, like, hey, we're doing this. And then to have those really hard conversations with you. And so it's a very commendable thing that she's doing to take care of you. Because if she wasn't paying attention, or she wasn't, didn't care, then who knows where you'd be right now.
Right. No, I agree. And I'm thankful for her every day. And, the biggest unsung heroes in this that never get the praise that they deserve is the significant other of a police officer.
Yeah.
Because, they have to take the kids to practice. They have to go to the PTA meetings. They have to go to the shopping, when we're at work. And you need strong support at home. And a lot of these significant others, they're the backbone of the police department. Even though they don't wear the uniform, they're the backbone, because they got to be strong for the family.
Yeah.
And, that's something I don't overlook, never have.
Absolutely. And on top of that, I mean, she has her own dramatic situations that she's going through stuff too. So there's different things that you guys are dealing with as a family. That's not, it's not just one-sided. It's a lot of back and forth that you guys have to overcome.
Right.
Did you want to talk more about what happened with that incident with your wife, or?
Sure. We could talk. So, I was in my I was at the offsite location with the my task force, and in the room we were at, it's called a skiff. We're not allowed to have phones in there for communication purposes. It's a federal rule. So I decided to go out and check my phone, which I never do, and I see a phone call from her, and I'm like, she never calls me. She's at work right now. So I answer the phone, and she just screams, "They're shooting in here!" And she hangs up. And I'm like, oh my God. So I call Long Beach to say, hey, there's a shooter at Memorial. So I make it down there in about 15 minutes, and found her in her department. She was up, they were safe. But she said that, she came into work a little bit late that day, and the shooter, she brushed up against him. She knew him. They said hi to each other, and she went about her business. And when the shooting started, she just said it was just chaotic in here. She goes, I was locked in the stairwell. She didn't hang up on me. The phone just dropped because she was in the stairwell.
Right.
And she goes, when she finally makes it up to her office, she looks out and she sees somebody shot in the head. Well, she actually saw the shooter commit suicide right below her. So, she's a pretty strong woman, but it really, really got to her. It really got to her. Again, she was a manager at the time. One of the victims literally lived around the block from her house, so it was really, really tough. And she had a really, really hard time. Yeah. And you talk about wellness, and I mean, she talked to me about it, and that was really about it, but you could tell she couldn't sleep for a while. Definitely that PTSD was kicking in, and she made it through. She, like I said, she's tough, but you fast forward now to, we've been retired for a year now, and when we're up here, we live in North Idaho now, and we'll be sitting down having wine in the backyard, and we still share these stories. And I think it's out of necessity. We're kind of venting. It's therapeutic to talk about it, and it's stuff that we filed away for years and years and years, and now we're here looking out over a patio, and there's nothing here, so let's talk about it. So that's been a tremendous help. But looking back, I wish I would have asked for help throughout my career. Hurts too, and I want people to get to that point. Hey, what you're feeling is natural, but help's there. So let's do whatever we can to help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it can I ask, was it a workplace violence situation? She knew.
Yes, it was.
She knew him. Yeah.
Yes. So it turns out that people found out they were going to get laid off eventually, but they weren't really putting it out there, and somebody obviously leaked it, and that's and she even said, that the shooter was someone that she had interacted with for years, and just a nice man. Wow. He just lost it.
Just snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it, like you said, like talking about it is therapeutic, and probably, like you said, being kind of in a serene area, just be able to kind of enjoy the peace, and then kind of rehash some of the stuff. But yeah, having someone to talk to is huge. And I kind of want to go back to, like, I think that when you talked earlier about like the chief saying, hey, if you ever need time or need help, let me know. You have someone to talk to. I'm always curious. Like, I wonder if we should do like if he is recognized, like, hey, Tony's having, like, this is a lot. Like, I'm gonna get someone here for a week and tell him to stay home for, like, put up, like, basically he's only gonna be there for like if it's a liaison kind of thing. Like, he needs to be home. Give him some time away from the place for a little bit, or like maybe your wife, after she dealt with that shooting, like her bosses, like, when do they see, like, hey, this person needs some time away? Like when do we recognize that in our people, and how do we help them
Usually,
out? Because it's different for you as a commander versus an officer. Like officer, you get paid hourly. It's different than, hey, having them stay home versus maybe a commander, you kind of do some stuff from home or,
right. Usually I think we help them out when it's too late, or we, offer help when it's too late. I think we just got to be on top of it more, from an everyday basis, and a lot of it's my fault, because the reason why I say it's my fault, because again, I love being a coach. I love team environments. And if I demanded my officers to be there, I wanted to be there with them.
right.
And so a lot of that's on me, but it's the way I was wired. It just caught up to me. But I don't have a good answer for that either. But it's like I said, it's if my officers are going to be there, I'm going to be there with them,
Yeah, I
because
think a lot of that's very similar. It's like the same idea of like, hey, you get food for the troops, and then you eat last, right? You always let them go. We always let them go first. Like you can always eat last. Like, hey, you guys go first, and then I'll eat last. So you make sure they're always taking care of them first, and then I'll deal with my stuff after everybody else is taken care of.
Right. No, and that you just hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why but that's why people, and I told you this on the phone before we had this interview, is that people respected you a lot, and it still respect you a lot as a leader in our organization. I'm sure even in the other organizations that you dealt with on the task force, I'm sure they saw the leadership qualities in you there too. But I think I really got to know you after you came out as a lieutenant, when you were on training, and I was a sergeant in the field, and really, we didn't know each other, but we got to know each other there and like talk about different things. And you were same thing. You're personable. You're a lieutenant, and you're treating me like an equal. Like we're having a conversation. I think that's important, and I exuding that throughout your career. People have told me to this day like how much they respect you. So I appreciate everything you've done for the guys that you work with.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, because it's again, it's a two-way street, and um, you're a great guy. We have great people working, and let's treat each other like adults. Let's lead. Let's trust. I trust you. Let's go and get this done. And my whole thing was just to treat people the way you want to be treated, and it's a simple concept. And again, if you're a sergeant, I'm going to let you be a sergeant. If you're a lieutenant, go be a lieutenant. Make your own decisions. If you need help, I'm here. And I think trust goes so far in this profession.
Absolutely. Is there what are you doing today now that you're retired, and besides sitting out on the back patio and enjoying the scene?
So working out 4 or 5 times a week, going a lot of hikes out here. I live in Sandpoint, Idaho. A lot of stuff to do recreationally out here. So just staying busy. One thing I've never been really good at is handy around the house. So I'm learning that. I just bought a guitar. I want to learn how to play the guitar.
All right.
And I still talk a whole lot with people back home, and it's always fun just bantering back and forth. So the part I miss, what I really respect, if I can go back, is you have a lot of people who are currently sergeants and lieutenants there, and I've been retired now for 14 months. They call me once a month, once every 2 weeks, to check up on me, and I am so appreciative of that. Just it's not a police officer anymore. In my heart I always will be, but just like you were saying, where do we make the changes to address issues? I think just them reaching out to me, hey, how are you, boss? It means so much to me.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how much I like it. And we'll sit on the phone and talk for an hour, 2 hours, just BS, And so I think that's another step that like a show like yours is going to carry out, to where people start realizing sooner, hey, let's check up on people. And I think that is so important.
It's funny that you say that, because when I started this, like the first couple episodes, I talked about holding space for people, taking time to listen to them and just having these conversations. So when someone else said like, oh, I'm going to meet Adam for coffee, and then a friend of him said, oh, are you going to hold space? Like kind of as a joke, but but regardless, if that's what comes out of it, like someone's like, hey, that means that we're going to go hang out and talk about life. I mean, that's what it's about. So yeah, I think that's great. I mean, and I'm not even the perfect at it either. Like as far as reaching out to people, there are times where I realize like, I haven't reached out to someone in a while, and I'm sure we all drop the ball, and then just every once in a while, like having those thoughts, like who, like oh, I need to reach out to my people, you know, the people in my life that, you know, have brought that to me. I need to do that for them, and just, you know, give them that space.
Yeah, no, it's the whole concept you have. It's amazing. I'm a huge fan, and just please don't stop doing it.
I appreciate it. As long as I can get on the computer, I can keep doing this. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that that you can think about that you would want to empower on a new police officer today? That somebody who wants to be a police officer, or someone that's starting now, someone just brand new, or the young guys out there anywhere in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. You're entering the most noble profession, you know, on the face of this earth. I truly believe that. There's a lot of negativity that's going to run in the media and whatnot, but you do your job, you stay safe, and not everyone can do this job because it's difficult to do. And the more demands that society's putting on there, I think the pendulum's going to swing back the other way eventually. But you're in a good place. You're around some solid superstar people, and block out the negativity and do the right thing. If you do the right thing and treat people the way you want to be treated, you're safe. You're going to have a long, productive career, and you're going to look back on it and be very proud of you, proud of yourself.
I appreciate those words, and thanks again for coming on. This is a Let's Grab a Cup podcast. That was Tony Lopez, retired commander, and now he's enjoying the peace and quiet up in Idaho. I'm about to come visit you up there.
Absolutely. Come on down, brother.
That'd be so fun. All right. Well, if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at AP_Sturgeon or at Let's Grab a Cup. You can find this show on YouTube. We'll get the video up there, and then on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, and at sturgeonwellness.com. All right. I'll look at this little outro music going. All right. Have a good day, Tony.
You too. Take care.